Please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Melvin Banks to the lectern.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Your words are powerful. A single word spoken at the right time can change someone's life. But the wrong word spoken in the same moment can absolutely crush the human spirit. And I'm living proof of that. Now, though some of you may know me, you only know me as the man that I am today. Very few, if any of you, know me for the child that I once was. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Melvin Banks. I'm the boy who sat quietly at the back of the class, too afraid to raise his hand and ask for help. I'm the child that was too insecure to speak in front of his peers. I'm the kid that a school system once tried to write off as learning disabled. I remember when my roller coaster ride all began. I was in Miss Turner's class. And as I sat at the back of the class, I kept my eyes fixed to the floor. See, what I had learned over time was that so long as they didn't make eye contact with me, my teachers wouldn't call them. But on this day, my little trick failed me. From out of nowhere, I hear Miss Turner's voice. "Melvin, would you come up front and read to the class?" My worst nightmare had just begun. I walked sheepishly up to the front of the room. I'll never forget the wave of emotion that swept over me. My heart was racing. Sweat began to bead up on my forehead. As I stood at the front of the room, my hands were trembling as I held my book. I stared at the words. I tried to sound a few of them out, but simply couldn't. And there in front of all of my classmates and friends, my little secret was exposed. I couldn't read. I'll never forget what happened in the days and the weeks following that. Now, at some point, Mrs. Turner had contacted my parents, and she informed them of all of my educational struggles. Now, it would have been one thing if I simply couldn't read, but combined with the fact that I couldn't read, I couldn't write very well, and truth be told, math and I are still mortal enemies. So my father, who was a really good man and an excellent dad, he did what any good dad would do. He took it upon himself and decided he was going to teach me how to read. Now, there was only one problem with that. My father, who served in the military for many years as a captain, who fought in Vietnam, well, he was better equipped to lead men into battle than he was to teach a kid. You see, he didn't possess the patience or the compassion to actually teach a child. And one day, when my confidence was at its lowest, when I was in the depth of my learning struggles, my father grew frustrated with me. And as we sat at the table, he slammed his hand down. He said, "Jesus, son, you can teach a dog to read." I want you to imagine a little boy, maybe 8 years old, hearing that from his father, from his hero. It shaped the way I saw myself for many years. I began to rationalize in my mind that if you could teach a dog to read, but you couldn't teach me, then obviously I must be stupid. And I'll tell you folks, I carried that idea around with me for many years. I didn't expect much of myself, and I didn't give a whole lot of myself either. To be quite honest with you, I didn't think that I had much to give. And that wasn't until one special lady, one very special teacher, came into my life, Miss Stevens. Now, Miss Stevens was a very special lady. She was a different kind of teacher. She exuded with energy. She was an older lady, but she just had excitement in her. When she walked into the room, she simply lit it on fire. She was passionate. She was passionate not just about teaching, but about ensuring that each and every child that she came into contact with that they knew they had something special and unique to offer. And I'll never forget what she did one day that absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. As I sat in Miss Stevens' class, working on math homework, she came walking down the aisle very quietly. She just stopped. She stood behind me. She didn't say a word. She just watched me work. And at that very moment, by some stroke of a miracle, by divine intervention, I got the problem right. What she did next changed the way I saw myself forever. She simply leaned over. She put her arm around me and gave me a little hug on the shoulder. And she said, "You see, I told you you were smart." From that moment, the way that I saw myself, what I believed I could be, completely changed. You see, I was never a straight A student, but I knew that I could be. I was never the top of my class, but I knew that I was capable. I never graduated valedictorian or magna cum laude. But what I gained from having come into contact with Ms. Stevens was something far more valuable. A belief in myself. A belief that was born out of someone else's belief in me. That one moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, has convinced me of one fact. Every child, every young person is one caring teacher, one committed adult away from becoming a success story. But the question that we have to ask, the question that each of us as adults must answer, is, are you the one? Are you the one to be the quiet voice of reassurance for a child who's lost confidence in themselves? Are you the one to reignite the flame of curiosity and the joy of learning in a child when it's been blown out by the bitter winds of life? Are you the one to help a child to see themselves for what they're capable of being and becoming when they've lost hope? Ladies and gentlemen, are you the one? Mr. Toastmaster.